What's up, soldiers? Chris here, CaribbeanPod.com. Always a pleasure having you guys here in the kitchen with me. Ribs Pelau. Yeah, it's supposed to be chicken pilau or salted pork or pigtail pilau. Traditional thing. But we swerving so. We swerving so. Alright? The recipe is mine. The inspiration behind it, however, is not mine. It's my friend, chef extraordinaire, Chef Finbar. Barry, I took your idea, brethren, but I'm rolling with my own recipe. You know, I did stewed ribs about 4 years ago, so the whole stew thing is already down pat. Today we're putting it all together in a pilau, what I believe is, in my humble opinion, the most extraordinary one-pot dish on the planet. I'm going to use about 1.5 racks of ribs, and these are back ribs. We're just going to flip them over, and you may want to take off the membrane from the back here. I really don't care one way or the other because it's all going to braise. That's always going to fall apart. But what we need to do, and if you've never cut ribs before, you're looking for between the bones here. That's where we're going to go in with a nice sharp knife, a nice piece of rib there, that extra piece of fat. I got to trim off all that fat there, and we're just going between the bones, and you're going to the center, so not close to one bone or the other, so you get equal distribution of meat to bone ratio. Yeah, and it's now time for us to season this bad boy. So Uncle Chris doesn't have any fresh Scotch bonnet pepper, so I'm dipping into my pineapple pepper sauce, and I'm gonna go in with, that's almost a tablespoon of that. But if you're using Scotch bonnet pepper, here's the thing, you're in control of this. How spicy you want it, you rock. Uncle Chris just went in with that big amount, a tablespoon and a half. Boom, 2 tablespoons of Caribbean green seasoning. We've talked about this time and time again. What it is, it's a puree or a blend of all the herbs. Well, the base in my case here is olive oil. And we've got scallion, cilantro, culantro, which is shadow benny, thyme, Spanish thyme, French thyme, all kind of niceness in there, along with garlic and seasoning peppers. The seasoning peppers or pimento peppers of these bad boys here, no heat whatsoever. We'll add these later on, but the flavor, I'm telling you, man. We need grated ginger. Now, remember, that ginger is going to give it a sort of a bite, a sort of a kick, a sort of a spicy element as well too. And I want skin and everything. I'm not discriminating. All that nice ginger in there. We need some Worcestershire. Give them a nice little dose of that. And that's going to give it an earthiness, a depth. We've got a little Angostura. Angostura only owe me some money for that publication. That sort of freeness I give out there, eh? Sea salt. I may look like a lot of salt, but remember, this is a one-pot dish. Rice is going in there later, so go for it. Black pepper. Go crazy with this black pepper. Now what you want to do is give this a good stir. Mix it up all together. I'm going to go in with an onion before we get to actual stirring. Now if you want a recipe for that Caribbean green seasoning, head over to CaribbeanPod.com. That recipe will be there waiting for you. Now, ladies and gentlemen, if you wanted to do this overnight and let it marinate in the fridge, by all means, better flavor altogether. But I'm not in a rush. I have to film and I have to eat. So I'd say an hour, 2 hours, and you're good. And this is why we needed a big bowl to start off with. I've got here about 5 pounds of that back ribs there. And this is pork ribs, if you're wondering. Now, traditionally, pilau is cooked with chicken. Chicken is the sort of protein. Or salted pigtail. If you head over to CaribbeanPod.com, you will see that recipe there, along with a gluten-free one, a vegan one, all kind of different versions. But today, we are using ribs. I've got a nice, big, heavy, deep pan here. High heat. High heat, ladies and gentlemen. Now here's the thing, it will become smoky, so please vent your kitchen. 1.5 tablespoons of olive oil, and I've got golden brown sugar. And I know what you're thinking. Is that going to be sweet? I guarantee you this is not going to be sweet. I get tight tongue there for a second. I need to visit the dentist, yes. Cut that tight tongue business there. But anyhow, What's going to happen here on that high heat and that oil? Now the spoon you're going to be stirring it with, make sure it's dry or you're going to run into problems. You will get burned. That sugar is going to melt. It's going to go frothy. It's going to go amber. When it goes deep amber, just before it goes black, that's when we're going to add the seasoned ribs to the pot. Now when you add the seasoned ribs to the pot, don't do anything with the bowl at that point. We need to add water to that bowl to be able to braise the ribs a little bit, because there will be some seasoning elements held back. Some of that marinade is going to be held back in that bowl, and we don't want to lose that. Now the reason why I am moving around the sugar, some people just swirl it. I like to move it because I know in my pot, my stove here that I use, there's a hot spot there and there's a hot spot here, and those two areas I want to burn before the sugar gets to that dark amber. If it goes black, stop, allow that pot to cool down all the way down, wash it and start back. If it goes black, ladies and gentlemen, you will have a bitter tasting pilau, and nobody is trying to eat nor serve bitter tasting pilau. Now there is that deep amber color I was talking about, and I don't know if you guys noticed it, but it was darker there and it was darker here. Those are my two hot spots. So here's where now we're going to start adding the seasoned ribs. And you want to keep stirring it just to make sure everything is coated in that loveliness there. Now what you're going to do is put the lid on here, turn the heat down to medium, and let that go for about 10 minutes. It's going to sprout its own juices, and that's exactly what we're looking for. It's been going there with the lid on, medium heat, for about 15 minutes, and I've stirred it about 3 or 4 times. And this is the dark color we got. Well, there's two massive bright lights shining down on lighting the images, so I'm not sure how dark it looks to you guys, but now what we're going to do, we need to intensify that color and that flavor. So we're going to crank up back the heat to high, burn off all that liquid, and we want to get back to this sort of dry pot or the oils that we started off with. And we've got that deep, rich color from that browning process that we do there. Yeah, they sell browning in bottle, but we ain't trying to go that route. You notice? The oils on the bottom there. So at this point, I like to go in with my pimento pepper, my diced up carrots, and yeah, Uncle Chris gonna change the game now. These are small red beans. Now traditionally, this recipe, when you're doing pilau, in my humble opinion, pigeon peas is the way to go. But we're changing things up a bit. We're already using a different cut of meat, a different type of meat. We're using that red beans. We're gonna hit that a stir just to coat the carrots and the red beans. Now if you're a traditionalist and you want to use that pigeon peas, by the way, that is half of a can of these red beans, and that's a tiny red bean. It's not the typical red kidney bean. If you wanted to go in with canned pigeon peas instead, by all means do so, and something a little bit different. I'm going to crank my heat. Well, my heat is on high. A combination of water and vegetable stock. You heard me right. Traditionally, it would just be water. I'm rocking a bit of vegetable stock in there too. Full list of ingredients down below. So yeah, many differences here with this recipe than the traditional way, but it's all about pulling out that flavor, balancing flavor, and giving you something airy to share with your family. We had 3 cups of water and 2 cups of that stock in there. Later on, you're gonna see me do another little something different, but stay tuned. We're trying to bring that back up to a boil now. We've got a wicked bubble going. So what we want to do now, because we need to add rice to this later, but we want to make sure the meat on the bones of these ribs are falling off. So we need to braise them. I'm going to turn my heat down to a rolling boil. Another little flavor ingredient in there is 2 tiny, well they're small, bay leaves. We're going to put the lid on the pot, and then we're going to hit them a little crack so you can breathe. And we're going to let that go on that rolling boil for about half an hour. It's been going now for about 25 minutes. It's reduced. I'm seeing the pullback on the bones there, which means this is getting nice and tender. So it is time to make inroads into finishing this off. I've got here coconut milk as well as a bit more chicken stock. Give that a stir. And that coconut milk is from a can. Now I'm going to go ahead and wash my rice. The rice has to make an appearance in here, but we're going to bring that up to a boil. We want that coconut milk to get absorbed into the ribs while we wash the rice. I'm going to use 3 cups of long grain parboiled brown rice. Yeah, now there's relaxation going on in the pot. In goes that washed parboiled brown rice. And washing the rice is just to take off the grit and the sort of extra starch with the rice. And washing it is basically, you have 2 options here. I had it in a bowl. You will rinse it in cool water. The water will become cloudy. You will drain that and keep repeating it until the water is no longer until it's no longer cloudy. You're gonna stir that. Now there are a few ways you're going to personalize this. Of course, later on you're going to taste it for salt and adjust it accordingly. The other sort of personalization you're going to do, there is something called Team Wet Pelau and Team Dry Pelau. If you want a dry pelau, you would have to cut back on the amount of liquid that we added in there by about a cup. I like it a bit more moist, a bit more wet, so this is why I have that much liquid in there. We're going to bring this back up to a boil after we have that rice in there. And then we're going to leave it on a rolling boil. Let that rice suck in all those niceness in there. Nice and plump. And yo, pilau, I'm telling you, man, it is the most comforting dish, in my humble opinion, you can ever have. So you notice the bubble we got going there? I'm going to turn my heat down to medium. The lid back on. Slightly ajar. And let that go until the rice is fully cooked. It's been about 10 minutes on that rolling boil. I have stirred it a couple times already. And what I like doing here now, something totally unconventional when it comes to pilau. And the reason why I like doing it is I like being able, since when my daughters was really small, it's an easy way to hide the good stuff into foods that they like. So they love pilau, they don't like spinach. So what did Uncle Chris do? Add the spinach in there. That's going to wilt down. It's going to become part of the pilau. And it's a great way to sneak vegetables and all that stuff like that into food for when kids are, they're not too irie about it. So you notice how many sort of variations and sort of personalizations I made to this recipe. We went in with unconventional, which is the ribs, to the red beans instead of the green pigeon peas. And adding that spinach in here brings another layer of not only flavor, but niceness and goodness. I love greens. I love greens in just about everything I do. That bay leaf has done its job. I'm just going to take it out now. Just going to tuck that in there. Here's where you may need to adjust the liquid. So add more water or stock if you want to. It's totally up to you what you add. Now if you want a more dry pilau, you'll see me, I'm stirring this quite a bit here. In stirring it, what's going to happen is the rice grains are going to start rubbing each other, and that starch is going to come out. It's going to make it nice and creamy. So when I get that sort of wet or moist pilau, I have a sort of a creamy texture to it. If you want a nice dry pilau, please try not to over stir it, because you don't want all that starch releasing and causing mayhem in the pot here to make things soggy. Now, besides the texture of the rice, the other thing a lot of people judge you on when it comes to making pilau is the color. So if it does look light or pale, please keep in mind I have 2 massive lights lighting this thing up. Sup, soldiers? Listen, if you enjoy this recipe, I'd really appreciate it if you hit subscribe and click that bell notification thing. If you've made the recipe, take a picture and send it to me, email address down here, I ain't trying to tell people the email address. Them butts will take the address and do all kind of thing with it. And tag me on Instagram at Caribbean Pod. I really appreciate you guys, and thanks for being in my kitchen with me today. Irie? Irie. At this point is where you will taste it for salt. I would recommend if you want it nice and moist like I have it here. And by moving it around, as I said, you get nice and creamy and everything else. Shut the stove off and let the residual heat finish things off. Taste it for salt, adjust that. Chris here, CaribbeanPod.com, not your everyday traditional pilau. We added that spinach in there. We went in with red beans. We went in with ribs. But say what? It's just our best meal going on here. Always a pleasure having you guys here in the kitchen with me. Let me hit all the little tight up. Special thanks to Chef Finbar for the inspiration for this recipe. And I do hope you guys give this one a try. Irie, serve it up. You want some coleslaw. You want some sliced avocado. You want some sliced cucumber. In my case here, one of the things I like, watercress. I kid you not, watercress with this. And remember, we snuck in that spinach in there. Them kids ain't even gonna pay attention to that.